At issue this Sunday morning, new leadership. Pennsylvania Democrats chose a new party chair. What's his strategy for winning elections, and what role can he play in addressing the recent political violence we've seen in the country? And political rematch. The man who lost the Democratic primary for Philadelphia District Attorney is now challenging incumbent Larry Krasner again, this time as the Republican nominee. I'm sitting down with him to ask why he thinks he'll succeed the second time around. And Supreme decisions. Pennsylvania Supreme Court justices are on the ballot in Pennsylvania this fall, but they're not running against each other. We'll explain coming up.
NBC10 at Issue starts now.
I'm Lauren Mayk. Welcome to NBC10 at Issue. Pennsylvania Democrats will be heading into the 2026 midterm election year with a new state party chair. Earlier this month, at a meeting in Lancaster, the party chose Eugene DePasquale as its new chair. He's a former Auditor General and former state representative. He replaces State Senator Sharif Street, who stepped down as party chair after he declared he's running for Congress to try to replace Representative Dwight Evans, who is retiring. Street is one of several candidates in that race. The new Pennsylvania State Democratic Party chair, Eugene DePasquale, joins us now. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
No, Warren, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Before we get into some of the politics of Pennsylvania, I first want to get your reaction to the assassination of Charlie Kirk and ask what you can do to help address the political violence that we are seeing in this country.
Look, he's a dad. First of all, I want to say this. It's completely unacceptable. It's tragic. It's a dad who is assassinated beyond just a political figure. It's a son, someone that had friends and family. And we all have to do our part to turn down the rhetoric. Look, we can have a battle of ideas, that's fine, but this is completely unacceptable. Anyone, whether it's one individual or more who are part of this, need to be held fully responsible to the law. And all of us in public life need to do our part to tone down the rhetoric and make sure that we are having a competing battle for ideas and not doing anything to try to endanger anyone's personal safety.
As you are taking over as the head of the Democratic Party in Pennsylvania, where we also saw an attack on the governor's residence, how do you cultivate a change? Who do you have those conversations with? Where does it start?
So first of all, you're right. I mean, this is, there was Minnesota lawmakers recently. The governor, clearly there was an assassination attempt on our own governor. There was an assassination attempt on President Trump. There was even, Nancy Pelosi's husband. The list is now getting, first of all, one is too many, but the list is getting longer and it's tragic every time. I and you and others cannot control what other people do, but we can control what we do. And I think we've all got to do our part to do what we can. That is, when we know someone is, to be blunt, politically engaged in going to that nth degree, we need to do our part to try to pull them back. If we see someone that's getting dangerous, we need to let the authorities know. We also need to do our part to make sure that we're having debates. We can have it aggressively based on the issues, but make sure that it's kept to the issues and keeping the personal out of it, because the consequences now are getting way too tragic.
Are there specific things that you would like to see happen or that you're going to look into now regarding security?
Well, when it comes to our own staff with the party, certainly we're going to take safety protocols, but it's also going to be something that anytime there's a rally in Pennsylvania, and certainly when it's my side of the aisle, I'm going to be recommending candidates do have some form of security there. I've done it at events I've done. Again, I want people to come, even people that disagree, but you've got to at least have some level of security there, even if it costs more money, even if the parties have to pay for it, because people's safety is paramount.
I'm going to take a turn and look ahead to your new term as chair of the Pennsylvania Democratic Party. You are taking over at a time when Democrats in Pennsylvania, they lost a Senate race, they lost a vote for president in Pennsylvania. What do you plan to do to turn things around for Democrats in Pennsylvania?
I think we've got to do a better job of listening and a better job talking about our core values, particularly as it pertains to the economy. Look, I think this past November, people were frustrated and felt that the Democratic Party had lost touch with various parts of our coalition. People that were telling us over and over again that these rising prices were impacting their daily lives. And I don't think we put enough of an agenda on their plate to let them know that we heard them and then we were going to do something about it. And the voters rebelled against that. And I think we've got to do a better job reaching back out to those communities. I'm going to be having listening tours across the state, reaching out to those communities, and also trying to refocus the party on the economic struggles of so many Pennsylvanians. These rising prices are continuing under President Trump. Manufacturing jobs are, we've lost 80,000 manufacturing jobs during the first couple months of the Trump administration. And the economy is really struggling. People that are paycheck to paycheck are really hurting. We've got to let them know that we hear them and put real ideas on the table on how we would turn this economy around if and when we are back in power.
You were not the chair in 2024, so I won't ask you to critique specific candidates, but you were a candidate and you lost in 2024. What did you do wrong?
I think it was a collective we. So we did not do, and I myself didn't do enough job of listening. And certainly like the Lehigh Valley, parts of Philadelphia, and even Erie, where I think we could have been more present earlier in listening to those folks and making sure that we had that we had ideas on the table to address their concerns. That was something, I've been specifically critical of one decision, but it's just a symbol for other items. And that was while Kamala Harris was campaigning with Liz Cheney in the Philadelphia suburbs, Donald Trump was talking about cutting taxes for people that are on Social Security and are tip earners. Now, again, protecting democracy was critical, and that's one of the reasons why I ran for Attorney General. But it was obvious that enough people were concerned not just about democracy, but that the democracy we have isn't working for them because of their economic struggles. And they specifically wanted to hear us addressing those economic struggles, and we didn't do enough, and myself included.
If you look at how the choices that people are making when they're registering to vote in Pennsylvania, I'm sure you know that Democrats are not keeping pace to where they were before. A smaller percentage of people are choosing to be Democrats when they register to vote in Pennsylvania. Is that a concern to you? Do you care about just how they vote, or are you worried about how they register as well? And if so, what do you do about it?
Well, how people vote politically is the most important, but certainly the registration is an indicator. So here's where my take on this. First of all, the largest growing block of voters in Pennsylvania are not affiliated. That means there's probably pretty clear frustration with both major political parties. So there's two things we need to do. As Democrats, we need to do a better job of registering people to our party. So that's number one. But number two is, I think that is only part of the problem, and that is an effort on it. But we've also got to do a job of making people think Democrats are fighting for them. If they believe the party is fighting for them, I think some of the registration concerns will be fixed. But we've got to do both. Put more effort into the registration and make sure that people know we're fighting for them. We've got to do both.
You can watch more from my interview with the new Pennsylvania Democratic Party chair on a new episode of my Battleground Politics podcast. It's streaming now on NBC10.com, the NBC10 app, our NBC Philadelphia YouTube channel, or you can listen while you're on the go. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Coming up, round two, the man who lost the Democratic primary for Philadelphia District Attorney will get a rematch with incumbent Larry Krasner. This time, he's running as the Republican nominee. I'll talk to him about the switch and why he thinks he'll win the second time around.
This is NBC 10 at Issue.
What happens if you lose the primary?
I'm not going to lose the primary.
What happens if you lose the primary?
So
is there
where am I going?
Is there any chance that you would attempt to run in the general?
Oh, we have laws that say what you can and can't do. So
you don't think there's any way around that?
I know Pittsburgh, they did something out there, but I don't have any plans of running for anything after May 20th. But I know Pittsburgh, they did something with a write-in campaign out there, but I'm not involved with any things like that are going on.
So if you lose the primary, that's it?
No, I'm not going to lose the primary, but let's see what happens. I'm not sure what other people are trying to do.
That was former Judge Patrick Dugan on NBC10 at issue back in May when he was running in the Democratic primary for Philadelphia District Attorney. He did lose that election, but thanks to a write-in campaign on the Republican side, he's now challenging incumbent DA Larry Krasner again, this time as the GOP nominee. And he's back with us again in studio. Judge Dugan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Before we talk about the race, I want to ask you about something in the news right now, something disturbing that we're all sort of watching play out, which is the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and just ask you what your thoughts are on that and what can be done to address the political violence that we're seeing in this country.
First of all, that's a horrible, horrible thing to happen, a violent crime to be committed on such a young man. Now, children are fatherless. This is terrible what happened to Charlie Kirk. If you disagree with what Charlie Kirk had to say, you go to the ballot box. You go to the colleges and you debate the man. You don't kill him. We cannot have this political violence in America. This is not who we are, and all sides need to tamp it down. We need to tell people this is not the solution. The only solution is go to the damn ballot box.
Is there anything that that you think would make a difference? Because we've unfortunately been here before too many times in recent memory. You know, is there anything that you think elected officials are not doing, or that the community at large is not doing to really turn a corner on this?
I think politicians need to tamp it down. When they talk this rhetoric on TV to rile up their supporters or their base so more people come out, we have to tamp it down, because we're talking about lives. We're talking about real people on the other side. We have to talk more with each other instead of telling people to go in and challenge people, go in and harass the other side. Just take your side, go to the ballot box, stop the rhetoric from the top on down. Let's talk to our neighbors. Let's talk to the other side. That's exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm a Democrat, still registered Democrat, running as the Republican nominee, but I want a unity campaign. I want everybody, independents, Democrats, Republicans, Forward Party, Working Families Party, non-voters, people who can't vote. I want everybody to come together in this unity tent for Philadelphia to get safer.
Well, let's talk about the campaign that you just referenced, and you sort of laid out where you are as the Republican nominee, but still personally registered, you said, as a Democrat. How does this work for you? Are you comfortable as the Republican nominee?
I'm comfortable because I'm back in the race. It's round 2. Wasn't something that I was really thinking about doing, but the opportunity arose. The Republicans did this write-in campaign like they did in Pittsburgh, and that candidate was successful. He's now the DA again. So am I comfortable? I'm comfortable about doing this because I'm not doing it. I wasn't doing it for the Democratic Party in the primary. I'm not doing it for the Republican Party right now. I am truly doing this for the victims' families.
Let me ask you about something that could involve you as the district attorney and also President Trump, which is President Trump has sent National Guard troops to certain cities and talked about sending them to other cities. How would you feel about the potential for any National Guard troops being sent to the city of Philadelphia to address crime?
What I would say as a district attorney, nothing to do with that. This is there's an issue with posse comitatus. So as a JAG officer, I understand that there's a lot of legal hurdles that should occur. It's between the governor of Pennsylvania and the president of the United States about whether or not these folks get called up. But it's one of those things where I don't want the rhetoric, and I heard the rhetoric about harass the National Guardsmen and women. Get your cameras out and follow them. Every single National Guard, they're serving our nation. It's a part-time job for them. They're our neighbors from West Philly, Southwest Philly. They are ordered to do this. They salute, they do their job. They're going to go out there and stand on the corner if that's what's going to happen.
Would you be okay with that in Philadelphia? Do you think that would be useful?
Well, I would prefer if we would do what President Clinton and the national government did in the 1990s and send us a couple $100 million so we could hire more cops, so more police officers can be out there doing community policing and interacting with people in a more positive way. I will also say that when we had the National Guard here after the riots a few years back, the National Guards, they were standing out there on the corners, and they did help quell the riots without really interacting with anybody. I heard somebody being interviewed from Chicago who said, the woman was talking about, it's really good to have somebody standing on the corner now because I could walk down the street and know I'm not going to get robbed. So this was a woman in a part of Chicago that these crimes are prevalent. So that's really up to the president, the governor, and the mayor. But I also say that...
But as district, if you were district attorney at the time, how would you feel about that?
If there's help out there in law enforcement, then so be it. It is what it is. I mean, I don't have any say in saying you can't come here. That's between, obviously, the president and the governor.
So you made your case regarding DA Krasner in the primary, and you lost, and it wasn't even close.
Correct.
What makes you think you're going to have a different result this time?
There's 241 more thousand people eligible to vote. And I'm hoping
there were a lot of people eligible to vote in the last election who didn't show up to vote.
Yeah, you know what? That's the big crime in this city. So like 17,
I mean,
18...
you had the possibility. It wasn't like everyone who could come out to vote voted and you lost.
I know.
There were lots of other people you could have gotten.
83, 84% of the people stayed home in the primary.
So why do you think you can get people out?
Because I'm going to look...
I mean, you didn't even... It wasn't close.
I lost by 41,000 votes, and I'm going to make them up in the general election. And everybody in the city of Philadelphia, so many people come up to me. When I first decided I was going to run, I'm at all these fancy parties over the holidays, and people all dressed up, and they know I'm a judge. I just retired. They come up to me, and the first two words they say is blank Krasner. I've been getting that since last December. Well, I heard it before that when I was a judge. So many people want him gone, but do not step up and vote. Larry Krasner's base comes out to vote. Every other Philadelphian, you need to get off the couch, get off your butt, and get out and vote, because you got to stop complaining. And there is a path to victory with the number, the more people who are eligible to vote. Plus, instead of 17%, if there were 40% comes out to vote, I know I'm going to win this election.
We also invited DA Larry Krasner for an interview. He wasn't available this week, but we do hope to speak with him before the general election. Still ahead, courting votes. Some Pennsylvania Supreme Court justices are on the ballot this fall, but they're not running against each other. Straight ahead, the decision people are being asked to make when they cast their ballot.
This is NBC10 at Issue.
We're back now on NBC10 at Issue with more on Decision 2025. 3 Pennsylvania Supreme Court justices are on the ballot this fall, but they're not running against anyone. Instead, voters will decide if they should get another 10 years on the bench.
The future of Pennsylvania's Supreme Court is on the ballot this fall, but it's not a traditional election.
What are voters going to be deciding this fall?
Retention races are different than other elections, right? This isn't a choice between 2 different candidates. This is simply an up or down, yes or no. Do you think these 3 judges individually should get another 10-year term on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court?
Lauren Christella is the president and CEO of Committee of 70, a nonpartisan watchdog group that held a forum with all 3 justices up for retention last night. She also sits on a Philadelphia Bar Association commission that evaluates candidates for judge.
Their impartiality is really what you should be looking at, right? Have they brought their ideology into the courtroom? Is that something you want to evaluate them on?
Ultimately, though, could this really just come down to politics? Because the Republican Party in the state is saying you should reject them. The Democratic Party is saying you should keep them.
I mean, certainly the amount of money and the advertising is going to have an effect. We know it always does. I would hope that voters are going to make decisions for themselves and be informed and make their own decisions based on what they think makes a good Supreme Court justice.
Pennsylvania's Supreme Court has 7 justices. 3 of them are up for retention: Justice David Wecht, Justice Christine Donahue, and Justice Kevin Dougherty.
What I'd like to do with the remainder of my term is to ensure that the efforts that we have made in terms of interpreting and applying the Pennsylvania Constitution continue.
The retention vote is for Pennsylvanians and Pennsylvanians only to judge our judges based upon our oath to the Constitution, to uphold it and to apply the law equally and fairly. I believe that the 3 of us have done that.
All we have is judgment, interpreting the law fairly. That's the agenda.
All 3 ran as Democrats when they won their seats. They don't run with parties in a retention election, but the parties are taking sides.
It's a big election in November. We have to elect our judges and vote no, no, no on the radical Supreme Court justices.
That's the head of the state Republican Party urging people to vote no to reject the justices, while the Pennsylvania Democratic Party is urging people to vote yes to retain the 3 who they say, quote, secured women's reproductive freedom and personal health care decisions, among other things.
If voters reject the justices, there would be a new election in 2027. In the meantime, the governor would be able to appoint a justice, but that would need approval from the Senate. Now, the governor is a Democrat, the Senate is majority Republican, so that could mean a vacancy for a while. Well, the election countdown is already here. Voting will begin well before November. Just ahead, when some voters in our area can expect to receive their mail-in ballots. That's straight ahead.
This is NBC10 at Issue.
If you live in Camden County and you're waiting for your mail-in ballot, it'll soon be on its way. NBC10 was in Berlin Township on Wednesday as a county vendor was printing and folding 98,000 ballots. They'll then go to another facility where they'll be put together with blank envelopes before they go to the Belmar post office. By law, the ballots have to be at the post office by September 20th, so you can expect postal workers to deliver them to you a couple of days after that. That does it for this edition of NBC10 at Issue. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day.